Hi guys, welcome to another tutorial. So today we're going to be making a corset. So these are the items that we're going to be needing. I'm going to be using a bus cup. I'll need my measurements. I'm going to need my pencil. I'm going to need scissors, and lastly I'm going to need my pattern paper. As you can see, this is what I'm showing you. These are the things that I'm going to need for this pattern drafting tutorial. So guys, on our pattern paper we already have our darts taken in, as you can see down there. So we have our shoulder line measurement down, we have our chest line down, we have our bust point, our under bust, our waistline, and lastly we have our top length. So your top length should be between 22 to 24 inches depending on how comfortable you are sitting with your corset. So to start, I'm just going to mark out my waist measurement first, and I took that in and I added the allowance I put for my darts there. And next, on our armhole line we're going to put in our chest measurement or our bust measurement. That's where we're going to put in our bust measurement on our armhole line, and I'm going to connect these two lines together as you see me doing here. So for the length, we're going to be putting our hip measurement there, or you could put your hip measurement, you could use exactly your hip measurement, or you could just remove like 0.25 from it, but I prefer just using my hip measurement down there because there's no much difference. Or you could actually use your top hip measurement if you like. So now I'm going to take out my side darts because I want the front and the back. This is what is going to make the front and the back equal. Once I take out this side dart, because my front is longer than my back by 1.5 inches, so I'm just going to input that 1.5 inches there, and I'm going to mark it down, and I'll take it out as the measurement for my side dart. So I'm going to connect that now to my bust point, and I will close it later when I am cutting my pattern. So this step is just to make sure that we don't have any, so that this step is just to make sure that when we are cutting our pattern we're going to have enough allowance to cut it properly. You're going to understand what I mean later. So guys, now we've taken down our general measurement. This is our basic bodice measurement. We've taken that down. So now we're going to do our underbust tightening, and I'm just going to put my underbust measurement, and I'm going to get the measurement that I have left, and I'm going to share it between both sides of my front bodice. You could share this equally or unequally. I usually share it equally. If it's from 0.75, I can share it equally, but if it's anything more than 1 inch, that's when you divide it by 2. If it's 0.75, you could share it equally, but if it's more than that, you could distribute the lesser part on the smaller part of your corset and the bigger part on the wider part. I hope you get what I mean. So now guys, I'm just going to connect these lines. I don't know why my ring light is shaking. I think my socket is bad. I should change it. So I've connected that down, and so for my bust cup, I've notched the top and the bottom, and this is what I'm going to use to curve out my corset curves, because this is exactly what I'm using. I'm not really going to pad it. So guys, this is where our bust cup comes into play, like I said. So I'm going to use this to curve out my bust cup line. But before I do that, I'm just going to come in from the pattern, from the beginning of my pattern. I'm going to come in by ½ inch or 0.75 inches, depending on how wide you want that midpoint to be. So that part that I notched, I placed it on one leg of my underbust line, and I'm going to connect it to that line that I made, just as you see me doing so, because this is what we're going to use to pad our cup, so we need it to be the same or similar measurement. So that's just what I'm going to use to curve it. Or you could use your curve ruler at this point. If you're not using a bra cup, you could use a curved ruler and try to curve this out. So this is just me trying to perfect the line. So on the side of my bodice, I'm going to come in by 1 inch or 1.5 inches depending on the size of a bust cup at that point. So I used 1 inch, sorry, and then I came down from the armhole line there by 1 inch also, and I connected it. So I'm going to repeat the same process I did, and I'm going to connect it to that line I just made with a curve. So if you ask me, using a bust cup is like the simplest way to get your corset done, or get it to fit you perfectly on your bust area, because the cups are already made, and I think they're actually, the only problem now is how to get your bust size. So we might talk about that on another video, but let's focus now back to what we were doing. So now I'm just going to take out my upper bust tightening. I'm going to do that by 0.75 inches, which is the same measurement I use for my under bust. So if you're working on a smaller size, you could use half inch if you want. If you're working on a bigger size, you could use 1 inch or 1.5 inch. I feel 1.5 inches is too much, but you could use between 1 inch and 1.25 inches, and that's fine on both sides. Now I'm just going to connect this. I'm trying to curve out my bust cups. I'm just trying to curve it out, and I'm trying not to get any pointy tips. Since I don't have any curved ruler, I'm going to use my hand, and this is my way of doing it so that I will avoid pointy tips, because you don't want your bustier having pointy tips. It's not pleasing. So guys, for our upper bust tightening that we just did, we are going to make sure that we don't have shortage of fabric. So to do that, I'm going to add 0.5 or 0.75 inches by the side of my pattern there. Although I didn't impute it in this video, it's a very crucial step. So I'm just trying to impute the depth of my neckline, how deep I want it to be. So I decided on 9 inches, and this is me curving it, and I curved it wrongly. I'm going to correct that later. It's not meant to be curved from at the beginning of that paper there. No, this is wrong. So I'm going to correct that later, and now I'm drafting my armhole. If you haven't seen my video on basic bodice and how to draft a basic bodice and a bustier pattern, please go and see it. These steps are made easier there, and I explain them properly. So as you have seen, I have done my neckline. I've gone to input my neckline measurements, and I have curved it. And next, I'm just going to divide my shoulder line into two, so that I will be able to take out a dart on my front yoke in case it's gaping too much. And I usually like to take out at least 0.25 inches on both sides, to tighten it a bit, because obviously the top and the yoke and the bodice are not going to be of the same measurement, since we already took out that on the main bodice. So the next thing we're going to do is the waist cinching, or the waist tightening, like waist snatching as some people call it. So I came out by 3 inches from my dot line, and that's from my bust point line, and I came in on both sides by 0.25 inches. So 0.25 inches will take in 2 inches in total from my overall waist measurement. So I'm just trying to take that out using a dart. So it's just the same, the same way you draft your dart, that you're going to do this. So you're going to come out from your bust point line and by 3 inches, or depending on how much you want. But I think 3 inches or even 3.5 is okay. If you're working for a smaller person, 2.5 is fine also. So if you notice, I'm not going to take out anything from my under bust line, because if you take that out, it's going to be a little too tight. It's going to be tighter on your under bust, and you don't want to take out any measurement from your under bust. You need to cinch your waist and not your under bust. So I didn't touch my under bust, because if you do that, you're going to take out measurement from your under bust too, and that's not what we need. So guys, that's it for the waist cinching technique, and this is just me going back to correct my neckline. And this is the proper way a corset neckline should be curved, so that you get that proper shape, like the actual corset shape. So I'm labeling my cups now, cup 1 and cup 2, so that I wouldn't get confused. You could get easily confused with corset patterns, especially the back. So I'm just extending this line to my bust cup line. Now guys, going to the back is basically the same thing at the front, but first of all, I'm going to take in my back, that bump that stays at the back anytime you don't take out the measurement. I don't want that. You could use 1/2 inch or 1 inch if you want. So that's what I did there, and now I'm going to start marking. So I'm going to put in my waist measurement first, and then I'm going to put in my dart measurement, and then there's no need to add anything else. So that's what I did. The same thing I did at the front is what I'm doing at the back now, and I'm just going to connect the lines together. So I went in and I curved my neckline. So I wanted an open back, and this is just me trying to put down that measurement, although I changed it later. And now I'm just drafting my armhole. So the back is actually similar to the front and is less hard to do. So next I'm going to take in my measurement for my waist cinching or my waist snatching. So I didn't take it all the way up to my chest line. I came down by 3 inches from my chest line, and I connected it as a dart because I don't want it to go too high. So guys, now that is done, it's time for me to get my modesty panel, and that's what I'm trying to do here. So I just came down on both lines. So I'm going to take out 2 inches from the back now. So I'm doing this 2 inches from the back up there and 2 inches down there, and then on the waistline I'm going to take out 2 inches starting from after that back bump intake. So you're going to see something like it's going to look like it's curved. So that's the reason it's curved, just in case you're wondering why it's not straight, because I didn't take it out from the beginning, from the edge of my paper there. So this is what I'm going to cut out, and this is where our corset lacing is going to be. So I'm just labeling my patterns here because it's very easy to get confused, and this is my modesty panel. So if you noticed, I came up from that modesty panel line, I came up by like 0.75 inches because I don't want my modesty panel to be exactly the same length as my bodice. So I'm going to cut that on fold. I'm going to cut that by 8 inches, between 8 to 6 inches. If you don't want a modesty panel at all, you could just skip all of these unnecessary steps, but some people don't like their backs open. So guys, you might notice that this video is actually everywhere and all over the place. It's because I actually really struggled before I could get the voiceover of this video, because there's just a lot to explain. And please, if you don't understand any step, you could just go back and watch it again, and I promise you you're going to understand it. And then there are more, corsets tutorials that are going to come up on this channel, and you could understand it with time if you keep watching videos. So as you can see, I have curved my waistline. I came up by 2 inches and I curved it, and this is just me putting allowance on the back of my pattern. You know me as someone, if you know me, I mean, if you watch my videos, you know that I prefer putting my allowance on my patterns before cutting out, because it just makes it easier for you to cut. So if you can put your allowance, please just go ahead and do that. So this is just me trying to adjust my back neckline on my, the back of my dress, because I wanted it to be a bit more lower. So I went in and I just took it down. So now I've gone ahead to cut the back and the front pattern, and finally this is what I ended up with.